We asked ChatGPT the top marketing questions companies have, and we are taking them on one by one. Hear what these industry leaders say so you'll be in the know. On today's episode, we welcome Dr. Elijah Clark, a marketing professor at Texas Christian University and business and growth advisor. Today, we are answering the question, how do companies use content strategies to engage target customers? Let's break it down and hear his perspective. Welcome, Elijah. Thank you for being here and joining our podcast.
All right, thank you for having me.
So I guess the first question we would have is, how do businesses identify their target customers?
That is going to come with research. It's going to come with just researching your target. Everybody has a unique customer, so there isn't one fits all size for customers. So for example, it depends on the age of that person. And sometimes you can go even a little deeper than that. Most people stop there and they just say, hey, we need to be on TikTok. We need to be on Instagram. We need to be on Twitter, where they don't realize that we need to start maybe just asking the customer who they are, maybe asking people to test your product or your service out and see what they like about it. And oftentimes it can go into politics and say, hey, are you a Republican or Democrat? Are you independent? Can go to income level, education level, whether or not they have kids or what's their all these other different categories that you need to consider when you're looking into your customer. So research, however, would be the proper way to go about doing that.
Do you feel people should come up with a strategy, as they engage in research? Like, is there a beginning to it? Is there a way to wade through it? Is there some kind of successful target strategy that they should deploy to engage their target customers as they're, doing the research?
Yeah, but it really depends on how you start your business. So if it's a startup, maybe the business hasn't already started, in which case you don't know who your customers are. In that case, if you're a restaurant, for example, something you can do is have an open house or ribbon cutting and have tasting tests there where customers can come in and try your product out and you get their feedback. If you're doing the service, you can do the same thing, maybe offer some service to someone or give them some business cards, go to some networking events. But if you're an established business, what you want to do is reach out to your current customers and see what they like and dislike about your company. So there are multiple ways to go about getting that customer feedback.
Yeah, and the tricky part is sometimes your target customers can change, right? I guess as your products evolve, do you recommend continually doing the research? Or how do you keep up with who they may be, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Not just your customers change, but the industry changes. Your competition may change. Maybe things change in the environment or the world. Things happen. The location that you're in might be growing or lack thereof. So there's many reasons that the business might be changing, but you absolutely need to continue to do research and continue to really just communicate with your customers. That's how you get the best results. If you are, again, an established business that's already open, continue to just work with your customers and see what they want. Don't spend too much time guessing when you have customers there willing to tell you and give you answers. And most of us sit there in rooms and boardrooms and have these conversations about what the customer wants, but we don't invite the customer there to that conversation. My answer is just invite the customer.
But what are some other specific tactics you can do to conduct that research?
One thing I love doing is just focus groups, putting them in a room and saying, hey, you come in, you get something free, and let's sit down and have a conversation about it. And then you can also do surveys. You can send out a survey and see what the customers currently think about the product or service and what recommendations they may have. What price points do they like about the product? Or will this work? Will it not work? Would you recommend this out to your family and friends? And you can get all that feedback. And of course, you might want to incentivize, but not to the point where they're going to be unauthentic with their response, but just say, hey, we'll give you a 10% coupon if you just fill out this survey. Not positive or negative, but just complete it and we'll give you 10% off your next purchase. There's a lot of ways to go about it. And mine is just focus groups and surveys.
Right. And also probably engage the market you're going into, the competition, right? What are they doing to reach their target, right? You want to imitate. I mean, imitation's the form of flattery, but it also can get you down the road a little bit more, correct?
That is 100% correct. That's good point you mentioned that, because that's probably what I do most is I look at competition. Before I launch a business, before I tell a client to launch a business, I say, look at what they're currently doing. And the reason for that is because they will or their customers will tell you everything they're doing right and wrong. What I mean by that is their website will have all the details, all the products and services they offer. They'll have the price points there. They'll also have done that research, their reviews. If you go look at their business on Google My Business or where all the reviews are, you'll see what the customers have to say about them. And then you can use that data to say, here's what the customers like and what they dislike, and here's what we need to do to improve upon that, because ultimately you do want to take their customers. So, but no, they give you all the information. So any business I launch, probably 90% of it is actually just doing research on the competition. So that's a huge point to make there.
Right. As a storyteller myself, and as a leader of a company that is a storyteller, tell me about how you feel like businesses could use storytelling techniques to target customers.
I think every business should have a story to tell. And really that hero story is probably the way they want to tell it, about how it was a small business starting somewhere. Apple started in the garage. Microsoft started in the garage. How they all started small and then ultimately got to be this big business. So telling that story is very critical, particularly if you're in a small city or a small town. They want to make sure that you're maybe mom and pop, or that you understand where they're coming from, and that they could maybe one day be you is, the goal with storytelling.
Right. And I also feel like you test stories in the marketplace. It's not that you change your story, but as a company, you have many different stories. So what story is going to work? And I guess as you're putting it out there, I guess that would lead you to the target customers that respond to the story, right? Maybe how you're filling a need with your product, maybe how, the solution is helping businesses, and that certainly could help, right? Target customers.
Yeah, target customers. And to your point, yes, the story may change, and you may have multiple stories depending on who you're talking to as well, or that audience. I know me, if I'm talking to some veterans, I'm going to say, hey, I'm a veteran myself. If it's a Black-owned business, I'm going to say, hey, I'm minority-owned myself. Or I'm a parent-owned business, or family-owned business, or small business, or large business. You want to really try to connect with those business owners and say, hey, I'm just like you, and I'm a part of your community as well. But my story does often change depending on who I'm talking to. So those businesses should find that, depending on their community and that target, of course.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is really interesting is when you do try different things, how long do you let them go for? Like if you're trying a different content strategy, how long do you let the marketplace respond? We're all instant gratification, right? And there is a sense of letting something play out a little bit, right? When you're trying a strategy, when you're trying to target customers. Do you have any feedback on that, about you've tried something, it didn't work, but you let it sit, maybe it did?
My suggestion is if it depends on your budget. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong one way, but it really comes down to budget and your time. If you don't have many employees, or you're doing it by yourself, you don't have the time or the resources to put too much energy towards a direction that doesn't work. And you need to figure out a solution fast, because maybe you got to pay your bills. Maybe you got to pay your employees, you got to pay your loans back or whatnot. So you need to make sure that you are generating a profit. And if that campaign's taking more than giving, then it doesn't work. And we need to find that out sooner than later. The average small business who is just starting out maybe has a few weeks, to determine whether or not a campaign is a success or not. They can't continue to spend money in one direction when it's showing that it's not going to work.
Yeah, the decision to cut bait, right, and move on it's always a challenging one as a business owner, to figure out when is the right time. Do channels matter? We know they do, but are there specific content formats or channels that are especially effective in engaging target customers? Have you found that?
You mean channels in the sense of like social media or offline channels?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Well, no, there is no right or wrong answer. It comes down to, again, that research and where your customers are. Obviously, if the customers are younger in the sense of 20 and under or 25 and under, they're not going to be on Facebook. So that channel's wrong. And if they're, 50 and older, they're probably not going to be on TikTok. So it just really depends on which networks we're looking at. But it also mainly depends on our customer and what channels they're currently on. But it doesn't make sense to market to a channel where our customers are not there.
Right. It's just hard to sometimes figure out, am I marketing to the right channel? You think you are, and you find out later you may not be. So you really do have to be aware, right? Results are everything, correct?
And that's where the research comes in. That's where the focus groups come in. And that's where that survey might come in. And you say, ask the customer, hey, which channels are you currently on? And you ask enough customers when they come into your store, or you send out an email to them and they fill out that survey, they can just tell you which channels they're on, and they'll tell you which channels you need to market on.
Yes, yes. You're in a unique position as an educator. You are sort of training the leaders of tomorrow, right? And talking about marketing trends and, teaching messaging and all that. How do you stay ahead of all the trends as an educator?
For me, it's staying relevant. It's not a tough task. I have to still be, I think, young and hip enough to understand what new is out there. I think, well, now there's threads out there. And sometimes the students tell me, I think, what in class, I think, we had students just tell me what Be Real was. I never knew what it was until, maybe 2 semesters ago. And I'm like, oh, this is a thing. Let me look into it. So sometimes.
Well, tell us, as being unhip.
I
Go
don't
ahead.
really know, but it's just another platform where they can just go on this platform and post some more pictures about themselves and tell some stories. But I think the ultimate goal is for them just to be authentic, and be real in a sense on that social channel, and just say, we're going to be authentic and not be made up and not put together a performance for you and just take this picture here and now, in this moment. Is what Be Real is. So it's an interesting platform, but there's also, like I said, threads. There's a lot of new things happening. So I do have to stay current in the industry. By doing that, I have to also remain a consultant, meaning I have to continue to talk to customers and do that research and make sure that I'm staying updated that way, as much as I possibly can. So it's a job to make sure that I am relevant enough to where the students say that I'm not too old and I'm not listening to you because you don't understand, right? And I also have a teenager, so I got a 15-year-old, so it kind of works out for me.
Well, yeah, and I also feel like, they're the trendsetters. 20 years ago, that might not be the case, but you are in the pocket of where, certainly seems like a lot of trends are actually starting. So it's no longer true. The always saying was that education moves slowly, but I do feel, it feels like you have an advantage.
Yeah, we do have an advantage because we do have to listen to the students, but there's also the theory behind education. There's theory and there's practice. So we have to continue to remain inside of the books, inside of these articles that are being published. And those are being written by older individuals, while the practice side is younger individuals who are building that platform and these platforms, these social media channels. So we do have to make sure that we're aware of both of these different areas.
Can you share a success story with a business, a partner, or maybe something you teach in class about, a campaign that effectively engaged customers and targeted, with content strategies?
Yeah, one I was using is my own one that we did launch. Students know about the escape room that I owned, and that one we had launched in North Arlington, about a mile from the stadiums, Cowboys, Rangers, Six Flags, and all of that. And we had launched that campaign or that business with 60 competitors in the area, us being the baby inside of that entire process. But we became number one within less than a year, by getting the highest rated, the most rated. Didn't have the best product or service, but we had the best experience because we listened to our customers and we got those customers to communicate about us and to start sharing their experiences with their networks and growing that entire channel. So instead of spending money on marketing, we spent it was a medium small business. So we spent about $10,000 per month on marketing. But we were marketing in the wrong direction. We thought that this business was hip to maybe younger generations or, somebody 25 and under, they're going to be our target audience. But we came to find out that they had no money and our product was pretty expensive. So we ended up changing, and it turned into that businesses were our customers who needed team building. So we ended up changing our entire strategy to build around that. And that ended up costing us about $600 a month from $10,000 a month. And we ended up getting bigger deals and getting contracts with businesses, to where they ended up coming to us for those, that service of, team building. And that's how we grew that business. But it ended up being what we didn't know it was, which was that it's team building more so than just a fun experience for families and friends. So I think that was a great experience to go through because it gave me a budget. And the thing about larger businesses is sometimes they have $1 million budget and you get to do whatever you want and build commercials and billboards and all these other things. But these smaller businesses and these medium businesses, they struggle a bit more, and you have to get more creative, and you got to start, your research now has to stick. You don't get to make as many mistakes with a smaller business as you do with these larger organizations. So it was a great experience to have that, and just see how things change. And all of our research was wrong. We thought our research showed us that it was college students and it was going to be this demographic and they were going to be on TikTok and Instagram, when no, they were on Facebook and they were via email. So we had to change our entire strategy in order to make that work.
Do you remember the evidence that told you that we're wrong, we're barking up the wrong tree, we need to move? What were the indicators?
The primary indicator was our money it kept leaving on advertisement and on Google ads and TikTok ads, and not TikTok, but Instagram ads and Facebook ads. And we started seeing where our revenue, our expenses were going, and majority of it was going towards marketing. And we could see the analytics of those marketing campaigns. And we saw how many people clicked on those ads, how many people responded, how many people called, how many people visited the website and made a purchase. So we started tracking the customers from start to finish. And we can see from Google, particularly Google Analytics, where it showed us how old the individuals were. And it said 18 through 25 are clicking on your ads 90% of the time. So 9,000 out of your $10,000 is going towards this particular group. But we also saw the traction that they had on the website and the path they were taking, and they were not checking out. And we said, okay, they're clicking, but they're not checking out. And then we looked at from the other direction and said the older individuals are clicking and checking out. But then we also got even deeper and saw that they were predominantly women. And we said, oh, they're women who are older. And we saw those women come to our location. And we saw that they were typically with families. And so they had kids. And we said, okay, we need to change our model here. And then we also saw the same thing with businesses, where they were coming in more often with their teams and doing group team building and renting out the entire location. So we started just asking them questions and just saying, how did you guys find us? What are you looking for? What's your budget? And they told us that they had to have mandatory team building activities on a monthly basis, whether that be bowling or golfing or whatever. And we said, how do we get involved? How do we get a contract? How do we make this work for the both of us? And we just started building up contracts with these companies that just came in, companies that we were not soliciting. It could be Lockheed Martin, American Airlines, that were just coming in very often. So we just sat down with them and had conversations, and they told us how they found us and what they wanted.
Yeah, it is an amazing, as an entrepreneur and leader of a business, responding to the market is what you're doing, and also changing strategies. I think that's what the small businesses are best at, right? It's easier to change strategies than being in a large sort of monolithic corporation. So awesome story. What brands or companies' strategies are you loving? Are you like enthralled with and really feel like are good examples of doing it the right way? What comes to mind?
I always think Apple. Everybody goes to Apple, and I respect Apple because I am an Apple lover, but I think they do it the right way because they don't put too much into marketing. And I mentioned Starbucks earlier. Starbucks was the same way. They never launched with commercials and with advertisement. And they just I love companies that have people talking about them, because that is the cheapest form of marketing that you can possibly have. If you get your customers to like your product or service, or just getting them to like you, then you end up creating everybody to be your ambassadors. And I love businesses that just create ambassadors primarily, not businesses that have to market, have to spend money on advertisement, but people who have developed a great product or a great service, and the community and their network start talking about them. So I think Apple always does that well. I think Amazon, we never really see an Amazon commercial. How often do you see an Amazon commercial, right?
They did have a campaign where they were profiling employees and saying how they were, encouraging them and successful. But you are correct; they're very rare.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yes. I love companies who just use customers in order to be their ambassadors, and that happens off network. That just happens by somebody posting about them and saying, "I love this product," and that's it. So anybody who's doing that is successful in my mind.
Terrific. Thank you, Elijah. Really appreciate your time, and good luck to all the businesses out there.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.